I was telling Sway that I had this idea for some merch and it just says be art.
Be art. You remind me of the conclusion I made one day. At least for me, it made sense to me. It's like you are the art. So it's very similar,
Yeah,
right?
dude, that's what I was thinking about.
Another similar one that I like was like your mind is the art. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at a piece of art made by someone, it's a representation of them, right? And then everything that we talked about right now, like all these events, all these tools, like all of those things are just part of its metadata, right? It's like it's what
Yeah.
charges the art and these stories, the storytelling. Literally, these art pieces are charged with storytelling and they'll be carried on and passed on. And those are the things that are going to outlive you. And one day someone will say, wow, that's Jonny. That's Jonny right
Yep.
there. A piece of him, at
Yep.
least.
That's the hope. That's the goal.
We can't wait to just give you a recap on everything that's been happening with the company, with the product, with what's happening in the creative community space that we're part of. And Jonny today is going to finish off his flow state series, which I'm really excited to hear, man. That's really
The
exciting.
big payoff now.
Really
We're going to
exciting.
get into flow hacking 101 and
Yeah.
teach everybody some tips and tricks of like how to actually get yourself into a flow state now that you kind of understand them a little bit.
Yeah, Jesse was talking about like when it comes to community building, it should be as close to forming a religious experience as possible. And I think this is the closest to it, dude. Like I was reading the chapter, and I'm a slow reader. I was reading the chapter on technology and just the stuff that people are creating out there that are harmless to try, right? You don't need to be like you don't have to jump from an airplane like 10,000 feet high to like experience flow. But now there's technology that can incite you and create that ecstasy state. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you'll learn more about that with flow, right,
Yeah,
Johnny?
absolutely. And not to go off on a tangent right off the bat, but dude, I used this meditation app recently. I think it's called Lumen, and it basically uses your camera's flash. You like do breathing and then close your eyes, and it almost does this sort of what do they call it? The when you activate the two different sides of your brain with the paddles. Anyway, dude, it creates these crazy light sequences, and you start to see all these shapes and everything. So
Oh,
there is like we're getting to the point now where we have technology that can sort of bring on
yeah.
these altered states of consciousness the same way that right we used to just have drugs to do it, but now we've got technology to do it.
Yeah, I don't want to go deep either, but you just reminded me that my wife was telling me, "Hey, it's healthy to get some sunlight on your anus." I'm like, "Yes, I know, but I'm not gonna
Yeah.
open my butt cheeks to my neighbor." I was like, "But there's infrared lighting for that kind of thing." Let's find out. Let's find out. Johnny and I were always going back and forth and reflecting on the stuff that we've produced so far. We see that the podcast is just getting better. We're thinking about segments. We're thinking about just keeping things tight and entertaining, and also keeping the format very modular because little certain pieces in the podcast are going to go up on social media and experimenting. Like what days, man, it's best to record. We tried Fridays for a couple of days. We tried Mondays. We tried Wednesdays, and today we're recording on a Friday, and we're still on a high. And I'm on a high alert, and and anxiety is like up here because the way that my morning
Yeah, you had
started.
a rough start to the
But
spaces this morning.
rough start with technology, man. So something happened with Patrick. I don't know, Patrick, and I'm not gonna ask the details, okay? But I'm not mad at you. Things happen, life happens. So I was ready to take on the challenge to hit record and go live on the spaces. Did not expect it, wasn't ready. And the thing is, I have like three devices here. I have my computer in front of me, I have my laptop over here, I have my phone over there, and with my laptop, I'm recording the spaces offline with a recorder and I started playing early in the morning with lighting, and I have like three different microphones, and I got all messed up. My drivers were all over the place, and I was like on three different accounts, and I have this whole machine that just backfired completely when I started the space. So there's like literally like nothing happening the first 2 minutes, and Johnny was like, trying to like fill in for the
Sway.
time. And Patrick wasn't there, and I'm like talking on Slack, I'm texting, and I'm sweating.
I just
Yeah, it was
started
quite a
rambling.
morning,
It
man.
wasn't too bad, I don't think. Luckily, it
It
takes a
wasn't
little
bad.
while for things to get rolling over there, and like people don't start showing up until, a few minutes into it. So I think we're okay.
Yeah, and I was really excited about it too. I mean, I'm always excited about Fridays. I think I say this for all of us. We all look forward to like hosting early in the mornings and setting the day for everyone, for all the creative peoples, because we've been having such amazing chats from like curators, art directors, filmmakers, AI film studios. Like, man, the people, the caliber of people that have been joining us is insane and inspiring. And today we were talking to Dustin Hollywood, and everything that was he was saying was like echoing everything of the place that we're at right now with
Yo,
Supermodels.
Dustin Hollywood, like, I mean, when you asked him if that was his actual last name, and I don't think he ever answered. But I was thinking, I
No, he
keep
did. It's still
imagining
a
him
mystery.
in Hollywood. And I wanted to ask him this on the call. I was like, are you even in Hollywood, or am I just projecting that because your last name's. But dude, such an inspiring guy. I was saying this on the call. I felt like we were definitely kindred spirits, had taken parallel paths. I went to school for photography. That's kind of how he started. We're both obsessed with just like texture and grain, and came up in dark rooms figuring out how to like dodge and burn. He's doing some really cool stuff with like, sounds like he's building AI models around these like texture pieces and being able to apply that to your generative stuff, which I think is like a key piece in the next kind of evolution of the tool sets. That was early on in my illustration career. I was definitely part of that wave of like textury illustrators where like we were working with clean vectors. Then everybody figured out like, how do I make this look like an old screen print? How can I, chew up and make sort of like ink bleed digitally? And it feels like Dustin's on the cutting edge of doing that with generative tools, which
Oh,
is rad.
yeah, you gotta give him a follow. The guy is he's a machine as well, and always putting out great content. And he's doing great stuff with his studio, Massive AI, and the film and the immersive experience that he kind of told us about that will be happening in Venice Film Festival. That was really interesting what he's doing there, almost technologically revolutionary and unique. So go check that space out. It's really neat, and you get to hear the first 10 minutes of the get to experience the chaos,
Yeah.
the chaos. So yeah, someone texted me loser. Then I found out that they weren't texting me. They weren't texting me specifically. Turns out it was a spam thread of people, and the person who said loser was responding to the original
Oh,
poster.
that's funny.
So and I kind of like doxed the guys or the
Yeah,
gals
dude, you were
number
blasting the
like on
number
X.
on our
Like,
spaces.
oh man, yeah. I really wanted somebody to
Yeah.
get back at them, but sorry.
Don't ever text
Don't
Sway
sue me.
loser. Lesson to everybody.
Don't. Especially when I'm like highly stressed,
Yeah.
high
Yeah.
anxiety, and on a space. So that's a little bit of the recap. But so much has happened, Johnny. Yesterday, you were with some friends, some new friends that you hosted, kind of like a little get together, right, in your
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah, man. The right, it feels like we started building this creative community online, and that's very quickly turned into this like IRL group for me and some other Portland folks, which is so cool. So last night, my friends Terrence and Yvonne founded this group called the Fireside Creative Technology Group. And so it's been going for like a year and a half now. They do a little meetup probably every 2 months where they'll have a speaker come in. It's kind of like an hour of networking. They bring in like pizza and beer. Everybody just kind of hangs out. Somebody does like half an hour, 45-minute presentation, and then everybody sort of dissipates. But I essentially invited, because Blacklight and I met up week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. He came by the studio. I invited him to the fireside meetup. He invited Underworld. I always say this wrong. Tupac Chopra.
Oh, he was
Yeah,
there.
yep. PJ Ace.
We just literally met him last week
Yeah, dude,
on a
guy's
space.
incredible. And he's very consistent. His IRL personality very consistent with his online
Oh, really?
personality. Like, but he keeps that same energy. He was great.
Oh, that
But
cool.
yeah, dude, so basically a good portion of the room was like this little AI meetup that we had, and the event was just like 2 blocks over from my studio, so it kind of wrapped, and then we all walked over to my studio and just kind of like hung out, nerded out, talked about workflows, talked about like all the most
Yeah.
recent tools. And yeah, I think we were all stoked, all left on a high, and we're like, let's make this like a monthly thing where we just get together because right? It's like one thing to do that stuff online, which is great, but it's like it's more visceral. It's a different level when you actually all get together in real time.
Yeah. Did Wonderworld showed you his art?
Oh, dude, insane. So
Right?
all
Not safe for work.
all of his stuff, right? All of his generative stuff's insane. But then he was showing me back in I think 2020, he got really into he would just like doodle and sketch a lot. And he got one of those tufting guns and he started building, he had all of these little doodles of like crazy little devil creatures and whatever from a sketchbook. He would turn those into like 7 foot tall tapestries, and so
Wow.
he was showing me some of those. He's like, dude, would you want to hang one on the wall in the studio? I'm like, absolutely, I would. So it's just cool to connect with people, like see all the different backgrounds that everybody kind of came from, and now how everybody's found themselves in this world, and also the possibilities and the opportunities that are starting to come around where right you were on this super early sway, just like I'm going to learn these tools, I'm going to experiment with these tools, I'm going to put stuff out. That's like so many people in this space, but now you hear about them like getting hired by huge film studios and talks to
Yeah.
like have their own IP for these shows, and it's this space is about to blow up in a big way.
It's and it's evident just because what's happening, what I'm witnessing, right? Like people actually coming together, meeting physically. A little bit of backstory. It's like not Blacklight, but definitely Wonderworld. He was one of the OGs of for the 6079 like
Yeah,
artists.
yeah,
Yeah, so we commissioned him for some artwork for like our two run one and round two of our campaign, and I would have never imagined that, like, okay, one day, we're gonna commission this guy and he's gonna meet Johnny and they're gonna hit it off and do all this crazy
yeah.
stuff that he just
What's
mentioned.
funny,
So I
dude,
was
is
like,
he didn't realize who I was, and I was like, "Yeah, I started doing like the brand design for like Alfie 6079." He's like, "Dude, I have my 6079 hat in the car. I almost wore it." He had like a different hat on, but
what?
then I hooked him up with a uncredited artist hat, so he was pretty
Sweet,
stoked on that.
sweet. Where can we get that, Johnny? Where can we get that?
Signalgoods.com and augmented imagination merch drop incoming. So be on the lookout.
Soon, soon,
Yep.
soon. And this is awesome. This is awesome because I think we were talking about like, yeah, these guys are using AI tools, and they're they're using it in many different creative ways. They're leveraging from it. They're becoming more efficient. It's helping them connect with people. It's helping them be part of a community. And just for example, like Wonderworld is like deep into like the NFT space. Blacklight, he's like deep into like he has his social media
Yep.
empire, content machine. He's doing crazy things, and we have like Tupacabra was like doing crazy stuff with
Like
like
UFO
aliens and like
influencer, like yeah, PJ and I think it was Genre AI is their studio. Like they're doing stuff with a
wow,
bunch of like big studios. So it's like it's happening now. Like we're over this sort of like I think we're coming over this sort of like crest of resistance, and everybody's realizing like these are superpowers. Like let's make use of them.
totally. And these guys are artists, and you can't take that away from them. And again, like it's evident just with how these relationships are being formed and the stuff that they're doing, right? And how that's impacting their own little sub communities and their tribes. So that's really neat. You want to share with us like the poem? You were telling me that you wrote a poem, right?
I don't have it all pulled up and
You don't have
ready.
it?
We can post that, but it basically stemmed from this idea. I was telling Sway that I had this idea for some merch and it just says be art. Just that
Yeah,
simple, kind of a statement piece. And then I have basically my friends Paul and Tom for the last like 5 years or something. We've been doing this thing called Poetry Friday, where each week we all write sort of like one poem, and then you share them on Friday. It sort of stemmed out. We're all artists, we're all creatives, and we were in these places in our personal lives where we didn't feel creatively satisfied. We weren't getting to work on stuff we were excited about. Had to do like real life shit, right? So didn't have the creative time or resources we wanted. So we started doing this practice we called Poetry Friday, and we'd say it's basically a minimum viable dose of creativity every week. And like, dude, just
Mm.
being able to consolidate that down and express yourself via like one poem or song or like whatever it is per week is so powerful. And we've been doing this for like 5 years now. So it's cool to look back and be like, whoa,
Wow.
we've got a giant body of work here we can do something with.
Really impressive. Yeah, be art. You remind me of the conclusion I made one day. At least for me, it made sense to me. It's like you are the art. So it's very similar,
Yeah,
right?
dude, that's what I was thinking about.
Another similar one that I like was like your mind is the art. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at a piece of art made by someone, it's a representation of them, right? And then everything that we talked about right now, like all these events, all these tools, like all of those things are just part of its metadata, right? It's like it's what
Yeah.
charges the art. So now when you look at, maybe you won't see brushstrokes, maybe you won't see like specific colors and elements and stuff, but you will see history, you will see connections, you will see, all the stuff that we're talking about right now. Like literally these pieces are charged and it adds so much value, right? And these stories, the storytelling, literally these art pieces are charged with storytelling and they'll be carried on and passed on. And those are the things that are going to outlive you. And one day someone will say, wow, that's Jonny. That's Jonny right
Yep.
there, a piece of him at
Yep.
least.
That's the hope. That's the goal.
Supermodels. So much has happened. We have a prototype, right? Um, we want to do a demo for those who are hearing about supermodels for the very first time, just very high level what it is and what we're trying to achieve and our goal and all. And just give you a little bit of our experience as a startup,
Yep.
right? Like how what we're learning as we pitch to investors, as we work with our technical partners, and today we were having a meeting about media strategy. So kind of a little bit of that. And Jonny,
Yeah.
tell us, show us.
Let's show. Let's show and tell. Maybe even show and yell. Get a little preview of a new yesterday's tomorrow, Mark, because we kind of borrowed some of the
Sorry phrase.
supermodels brand. You know, when you're just like building brands left and right, and like you have all these pieces that it's like you just got to go back and leverage stuff in a different way. So
Yeah, repurposing.
this is the portion of the actual pitch deck we've been presenting it to investors right now, trying to get some funding so we can go out and build this. So it's cool that we can not only kind of demo the product, but if you're on a similar path to us, which a lot of people, right, everybody in the Think Builders Club, we're all in this same space where it's like we've got these ideas, we're building these things, but you've also got to like build a pitch deck, figure out how to tell your story. So want to kind of pull back the curtain on that stuff as well. So this is this kind of like, right? I set up the problem before this. I won't go through the entire deck, but then this is like, here's the problem. The problem is, right, generative AI is held back because of the problems with consistency and ownership. We think we have the solution for that. It's supermodels. So this is kind of this like, line in the sand moment, show off our cool logo treatment. This is the URL we have, supermode.ls. There's nothing there right now, but that's coming. uh, but right from there, after setting up the problem, we want to show the kind of value propositions very clearly. So like supermodels are personally trained, they're custom trained AI models purpose built for your unique creative work and style. And it's got to be like this short and succinct. It's got to be like one sentence long. They're privately owned. Supermodels are privately owned AI models that users custody and control as secure encrypted assets. So very punchy, straight to the point, some sort of cool visual to support it. The other thing we're really excited about is it's a monetizable asset. So you own them. The artist will be able to license, lease, or sell them at their discretion. We're hoping supermodels can build a whole sort of new creative economy, creative marketplace, basically allow artists to own and be empowered by AI instead of exploited by it. I won't go too deep into this. This is just like a high level overview, providing some context of like how supermodels fit in the generative tool stack, giving context to the product and what we're building. And the way we're building is like this entire space is turning into sort of a really cool composable plug and play architecture to where it feels like the foundation models are already very swappable. We saw last week even Adobe Firefly. You can choose from these different foundation models, which I didn't think this would happen that soon. So like that's a really good sign. I guess Midjourney is also considering open up APIs. So I think we're going to see like this entire industry be this kind of like modular kit of parts that you can sort of bolt together. And this is great for supermodels because we're approaching this is like this is your style DNA, this is your creative DNA, this is this personality layer for generative AI that it's like, I want to go work in runway. I want to do some video stuff. I want to do some like 3D stuff, but I want to take my creative personality, my personal style across all of those different sort of tools and mediums. Supermodels will allow you to do that, which is really exciting. Um, a quick overview of the product flow and how it's going to work, right? You're going to train it up on some of your personal IP. You're going to, right, have some sort of AI assisted indexing to help organize, tag, prep this stuff. You're going to train a model using that. We'll probably have some cool partnership opportunities here where it's like this is where the compute requirements really come in. A lot of this stuff you could like keep your supermodel local. You could do local inference if you wanted, but to train stuff, we're probably going to tap into some partnerships. Hopefully, some people from the Independent AI Institute to provide compute for this. We're thinking about ways to tune it. If you think about how Midjourney has you do sort of a personalization, maybe it just spits out 100 photos and you kind of rate those just to give a better idea of the performance you want out of the model. And then from there, right, we're going to have some basic built-in tools like text to image stuff where you can just start to generate. But if you want to take it to like your comfy UI or whatever else, you can just sort of deploy this via APIs and be able to use all these different tools. So here's a look at the training data for the prototype we created. This is just the selection. This is all work-based, modified work based on a client project I did several years ago. And we wanted to do this because we wanted it to be like real brand creative, right? The consistent color palette, the style, all of this stuff. Like what kind of performance can we get out of this to see like, is this a viable product to have this sort of like almost intelligent brand, this living media kit for creatives, for brands, so they can scale their creative capabilities. Um, so we sent this all to the homie Jesse Metcalf, who's sort of our LoRa expert. He's built a prototype and he's training it up for us. And we wanted to just experiment with some basic text to image stuff. Hand holding a phone, right? It's got the simplistic style just like I wanted. It's taking on the color palette. Mid-century desk. I was really interested in this because I use a sort of unique, almost isometric perspective. And a lot of the training footage or the training images, it totally nailed that. It gets the shadows right in the same way. Again, it's sort of like inheriting the color palette, just everything about it, like early results were like, wow, man, this is working really well. And I forgot to mention too on that last page, we ingested about 55 images. We did about 1,000 training steps, which Jesse was saying that's like the sweet spot he typically finds for LoRa training is 3 to 5,000. So like we could we could fine tune this model more to have it like more intricately analyze the style, but based on like these results, just out of the basic sort of structure we did, really happy with it. So we did a bunch of basic stuff, but then we wanted to try something a little crazier. So like two samurai gorillas sword fighting, like nailed it. So that's cool. That already like makes me 1,000 times more productive, cuts down the time, but like let's expand on like capabilities now. Like, what if we go image to image? So I don't have to like sketch stuff or come up with prompts from scratch. Can I just find references and then render those out in the same style? So we explored a bunch of that stuff, absolutely killing it. Like, this is one of my favorite examples because if you had a
Mm.
brand and you had product photos, but you wanted to have like a more illustrated, unique treatment of those product photos, like you just retexture everything and it like nails it. Again, there's a lot of complex stuff going on here, right? Like the buttons, all the little shadows, all these little pieces, it really nailed taking something way more complex, like somebody's portrait, and then simplifying it into these basic shapes, modifying the colors to get more in the sort of brand color palette, like pretty crazy stuff. And again, this is us demonstrating
Mm.
plugging in supermodels into Comfy UI, leveraging all of their capabilities. This is one I'm so stoked for, and especially for illustrators, right? I think this will be such a selling point. It's like I'm a control freak. I still want to control the composition and like build my figures in a certain way. But if I could do a rough sketch and then have a fully rendered out in my style sort of image instantaneously, and I can watch it come together and like real time adjust my composition. Again, these are all existing sort of capabilities, right? But we're tapping into it in a new way because it's like your creative personality, your style outputting exactly what you want. And then this one blew me away, the image to video,
Mm.
where it nailed the sort of still image of the ladybug, but then like the it flying off and seeing like the underbelly and every like it all just works so well. And again, it's like taking on that style in a really cool way. Um, so yeah, dude, like incredible, incredible results from the early prototypes. You can even like reskin videos, which Jesse did here with right, some sort of like TikTok challenge. But like did a great job of like picking up the key aspects of the
Oh
style
yeah.
and applying it to the content. So man,
Well,
it's exciting and like the possibilities this opens up and the kind of results we're getting from these early prototypes, explorations, it's just making it really land to be like, oh, we've really got something here.
I mean, I must have seen this presentation like over 20 times and I still get excited, you know, seeing the results. Right. So, for those who really are not technically inclined, they don't know what 1000 steps is or LoRa's are. In a nutshell, Johnny, like, how does this even help an illustrator? I can think of some ways. I mean, if I have a body of work that where I want to train this model on a specific style, a specific illustration style, I know that if I train this model with that specific with that specific illustration style, I can go off and do a draw to image. I can go off and they're like, you know what? I'm just gonna go take a bunch of pictures and then restyle those pictures based off what the client needs. I mean, there's many different ways to approach this workflow, but it makes it more efficient,
Yeah.
right? It makes you work faster.
It scales your creative capabilities in ways you can't even comprehend or understand, and we wanted to start with illustrators, one because like uh recreating the style is one of the things that Laura's does really well, and you could sort of like right train for that, but then also for it makes sense this is a product for illustrators because your style is your lifeblood. Like that's what got you hired. That's what you've probably been developing your entire life. Somebody like me, like my whole thing was I would create like multiple styles. So I didn't have like one signature style, but I have lots of friends that like their entire thing is like they have this very specific one style they've been sort of refining and honing their entire life. So they have these huge catalogs, and the reality of the situation is like the creative industry is changing. The sort of contracts that are there are not there in the same way. The jobs are changing. And we were just talking about this earlier. We see how like this is shifting. Like I have so many friends that had big, successful creative agencies. Those principals are freelancers now. And they're like, shit, what do I do now? Like I was supporting an entire agency. Right now, I'm struggling to find work just even for myself. Meanwhile, all of our AI friends, they're like, dude, I'm getting stuff left and right. Like all of the sudden, this sort of like the possibilities are really opening up because everybody's realizing like, oh, the capabilities here are undeniable. So like we're gonna leverage that. We're gonna use that in our brands. We're gonna use that in our marketing. So we're seeing like all of our AI friends like real world possibilities, opportunities opening up. Meanwhile, like some of my traditional creative friends, it's the total opposite. So we were just talking, Sway, like we see a big part of what we're doing is like one like legitimizing AI arts, AI creatives is like world class artists
Hmm.
and creatives because they are. And if you're actually in the know and you see what people are making, you see what our friends are making, and these entire worlds they're constructing out of nowhere, like incredible.
Yeah,
But it's like,
impressive.
and this is me for me, like maybe more for me personally, but I see myself as like this bridge where I've got to take my like my traditional creative friends and be like, come along, look what you can do here. Look how you can use your existing craft, use your existing skill set, use the style you've been developing your entire life. But like, you not only like can just create spot illustrations now, you can create books in a weekend. You can create music videos. You could do 3D stuff, like whatever it can be. Like, and it always comes down to like, there's like an identity and ego thing, right? And like, you got to let go of that and evolve and become sort of like the next thing. And I
Totally.
think we're very much like in that space. But yeah, dude, the way, I mean, just even based on the prototype, the stuff I'm seeing with my own work, I'm like, oh, this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
I can do things I've always
Oh
dreamed
yeah.
about, but didn't feel like I could because I didn't have the capabilities of the time, whatever it is. Like, none of that applies now.
Dude, that image to video, that style transfer to the video, I was like, it would have taken hours,
Oh,
hours.
yeah.
Yvonne would have charged you an arm and a
Yeah.
leg,
Yeah. Yeah.
for something like that.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, especially something with that dynamic, having those kind of physics. Um, Dude, and you know what I love about this is that everyone where we've demonstrated these the results of this prototype, not only are they impressed, but they also see that no one is paying attention as much as we are paying attention to this. Like no one is really thinking about how to serve the illustrators using AI. And I'm really not that concerned, and like it's not really going to be too hard in convincing them because we're bringing them along their journey. I was
Hmm.
like, "Hey guys, hop on board. We need your help to to solve this, right? We need you because we want to serve you. We want to, like, for some illustrators, one specific style, I know a few, one specific style is just bread and butter,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And they can't stop. They can't go ahead and explore onto other
Yep.
things, because that's their bread and butter is there. And like supermodels
Yep.
will help them with
Yep.
that, right? Just it'll gift them 3, 4, 5 hours more,
Yep.
and you can do so much, right? You can explore AI, you can explore painting, you can do whatever you want, go for a travel, go for a walk. I don't know, right? And that's where we're thinking with supermodels, like how it's going to serve the artist, the illustrator, and on top of that, how it's going to help the artist scale. Because we're thinking about all
Yeah.
these like tools that are going to be on top of it. Like we're thinking, we're also thinking about like this whole past week was our discussion was like on the pricing model, and asking like the hard questions. What does it really mean for the artist to actually own their supermodel if the day comes where they want to unsubscribe and not continue with us? We want to remain loyal to that.
Hmm.
We want to give the artist the security that no, this is yours. You trained us here. Do with it whatever you want. We kept our
Yep.
word. But you want to stay with us. Our commitment is we're going to continue building tools on top of that. Jesse surprised us. Was like, hey, by the way, we can turn these images into SVG. I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
dude, that
More control, more
we
manipulation.
didn't even get into that, but he like that was a very awesome surprise this morning where he's like, yeah, I added the ability to like save as SVG. And like based on that style that we trained up, right? That was all based on vector stuff. So like to not only be able to like recreate that style, because a lot of it is like, I mean, a lot of it was great, but a lot of it is like 90% there. I might want to tweak something, right? Now, if I can just download his SVG and I'm like already so close and I just tweak a few things, again, like it's
Dude,
hard. Oh, yeah.
motion graphics artists are
Yep.
rejoicing, right? Like they don't like, oh, cut the time with masking. Or like, oh, thank God, SVGs.
Yeah.
You know, let me just get into the animation.
Yeah. Dude, it's just so exciting. And we say it every week, but like you have to like retrain yourself almost weekly about like what the upper limit is. And maybe it's just gone at this point, but it's, you're like, and we talk about this all the time on like projects we're working on, some of the film projects we're working on. We're like, well, the good thing is if the capabilities aren't there this week, there's a good chance they will be next week.
Let's talk some flow states, Johnny. You have part three
Let's get in the flow,
for
shall
us.
we? Ba, 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 ba. Did it again. So we're talking about flow states, right? I got sort of obsessed with flow states after reading a book called Stilling Fire, which I've got Sway reading right now. Flow states are essentially, it's like peak human performance. It's referred to as a bunch of different terms and sort of different spaces in the zone. Comedians call it the forever box. Tapped in, people in code mode. It's when like sort of the inner chatter goes away, you sort of lose sense of time, and you just perform at your best. Like everything's just kind of effortless, things just kind of flow. Uh, right. And this is what's called it's a non-ordinary state of consciousness. So we've all experienced it. You probably experienced it as a kid. Maybe you were skiing, maybe you're skateboarding, maybe you were just throwing a ball against the wall and got like really into the zone. So like that's flow state. And when you're in a flow state, you're just way more creative, you're way more effective. It really just it's peak performance in human beings. So then last week I quickly talked about how uh what's going on in your brain during a flow state is actually the prefrontal cortex is sort of powering down, and then the two hemispheres of your brain are just communicating directly with one another. Where in normal consciousness, they're sort of relaying information through the prefrontal cortex, which is just a huge bottleneck. It doesn't have that much processing power. It's also very judgmental. So if it doesn't like what the left hemisphere is saying to the right hemisphere, it basically won't relay the message. So when you get into a flow state, that prefrontal cortex actually shuts off, and these two different hemispheres, one being sort of like the visionary, thinking very high level, intuitive, seeing how everything connects. One is very more strategic, right? Just rational, putting together a plan, thinking about action steps. Those two are communicating directly with one another. So you're getting the whole picture and you're getting it very quickly. So that's what's going on during a flow state. You also get this high performance neurochemistry cocktail, which just like turns everything up to 11. So we have that understanding of what a flow state is. We know what's going on in the brain during a flow state, like the prefrontal cortex shutting down, right? Getting this exchange between the two hemispheres. Now we're going to get into flow hacking, which are actually tips, tricks, and techniques to actually get yourself into a flow state. So, a couple more definitions here. Flow triggers, they're external preconditions of flow. Through an understanding of these external triggers, we can reverse engineer and flow will arise. So, what are these flow triggers? Intense focus, complete concentration, clear goals, having an idea of like, I want to achieve this. Immediate feedback, something that it's like, right? We were just talking about I was talking to Blacklight about this. He's like, I can get into a flow state so quickly with AI because I get that feedback loop where I'm like trying stuff, it's rendering out in front of me. So you can get very clear feedback really quickly. Challenge skills balance. You want to sort of stretch your capabilities, but not snap them. So, like going after something that's like, beyond right your sort of normal achievement but not too far off. You want curiosity, passion, and purpose. So I always tell people, like, when you're trying to like do this flow hack and get yourself into a flow state, like it's best to start with a passion project, something that it's like you really want to do. If it's something like, I'm gonna I'm gonna get myself into a flow state doing my quarterly taxes. Like probably not gonna happen. Deep embodiment, like get into your body. Like when I'm trying to like do a flow session, I'll actually like do a little shakeout. I'll go on a walk or I'll just sort of like shadow box in my studio to get into the body like Sway's doing right now. um, Novelty, something like new and exciting and unfamiliar. All of these are sort of the preconditions for flow. So understanding these, we can sort of set up scenarios in which these things will occur and we'll get into a flow state. So looks like I've got my animations out of order a little bit. Flow hacks. These are the things you can actually control to right, get yourself into flow and combine them with those preconditions. So bilateral movement. My favorite flow hack is to go for a walk because by going for a walk, you're using the two different hemispheres of your brain and they're communicating directly with each other because the two different hemispheres control the two different sides of your body. This is why, like, people always say, like, I have the best conversations with somebody when we're on a walk together. I can clear my head while I'm walking. This is why. Mindful breathing, just like getting present, getting into the moment. This is another thing that sort of quiets that prefrontal cortex. Intent setting, like setting out goals ahead of time. Again, this is sort of a correlate to that passion and purpose. Right? Say like, I want to achieve this. This is what I'm going to use this time for. Engage with gravity. This is one of my favorite tricks. Like the most or a lot of the research around flow states was actually done around like extreme sports athletes and how like in the 90s they were just like constantly one-upping what we thought was possible. And a lot of that was like it's such high stakes situation that like you're in a flow state, like you're right? You're bungee jumping, you're skydiving, whatever it may be. Like you cannot be fully present and fully on because you will die if you don't. So like, and that doesn't mean you have to be super extreme with this, like going longboarding, some of those little balance boards, anything that like gets you just sort of like in the present moment really helps. Binaural beats, super helpful, right? Just kind of change your the brain waves a little bit, like shift them more towards like a more uh, primed for flow state. Mindful movement, again, that kind of goes with sort of the walking. Creative play, one of the things with a flow state is like you want to turn off the inner critic. So if you start doing something where like there's no stakes attached and you're not like, this isn't good enough. Like this isn't going to get the boss's approval. Like put that stuff aside and just like doodle and draw, right? And then sort of shift over to your flow state. So those are some flow hacks. There's also kind of phases for this. I always talk about it's like intent setting, decide what you want to do, what you want to focus on. Something I like to call airplane mode yourself. So it's not actually that hard to get yourself into a flow state. It's really hard to stay in a flow state. And anytime you get a notification, a phone call, and it clicks you out of that flow state because you're basically your prefrontal cortex is going to turn back on to be like, oh, I've got to communicate verbally with somebody right now. Like I've got to switch over into normal waking consciousness mode. That's going to get you out of your flow state. You prime yourself, use your physicality to prime your brain. This is that like going on a walk. I always talk about like do the shakeout, get in your body a little bit. It's really helpful. That play piece where if I'm doing a right, getting into a flow state, I'll start by like doodling or just doing something to sort of like get in the zone, and then I'll shift over and then flow. Then you get into your flow state. So, like, say in your intent setting, Sway, you're like, I'm going to make, right? I'm going to make a new reel for myself, 30 to 60 seconds long. I want to highlight this stuff, right? Set that intent before your flow session. Maybe for your play section, you're like, I'm just going to like doodle or write, mess with some tool I'm kind of interested in, get yourself primed, and then you transition over to your flow state into your focus work. So, break that all down into basically a protocol. So block out 90 minutes. That's kind of optimum amount of time. Airplane mode yourself. So like set up your space, say, honey, I can't talk to you for 90 minutes. Don't talk to me. And this is one of the hardest things about this is just to like make space for yourself. And it doesn't have to be 90 minutes, right? Maybe you only have an hour or whatever it is. But like give yourself space to do this, and then you can listen to sort of binaural beats on repeat. I'll also like, if there's a song at the time that I'm just like really feeling, it makes me feel happy or energized or whatever it is, I'll just listen to that on loop because it sort of evokes an emotion in me. And then the nice thing about listening to something on loop is it helps you lose track of time. Again, you want this sense of timelessness. So it kind of like sets the tempo, sets the mood, but it's also just going to keep you in this cycle. Do 10 minutes of what I call box walking. And this is box breathing, which is like 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold at the bottom for 4 seconds. You basically do that as you walk, and you can just count off your steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do that while listening to binaural beats. And you're gonna instantly like realize you're just in like a different state of consciousness. One of the helpful things too about like counting off your steps and doing that box breathing is it does what I call it distracts the critic, where it's like we all have this inner critic, this ego that lives in the prefrontal cortex. The same reason that like counting sheep to go to sleep like shuts that guy up so you can actually just rest. The same thing, like make him count steps. Get him distracted with that, and then he'll kind of just get lulled to sleep. And then your two hemispheres will take over because they're active. So do a 10-minute box breathing plus walking. And like if 4 seconds feels like a long breath hold or whatever, it doesn't, you could do two, you could do three, but just make it a square. Um, and then 20 minutes of sort of free play, whatever that may be. And then again, shift over into what you want to focus on, your deep sort of work, your flow state. And when I got into this, I basically set aside like Wednesday nights. I was like, Wednesday nights are like flow night, where I just set aside 90 minutes, prime myself, get myself into sort of a state. I had like my drawing table set up in the garage, so I would just lock myself in there and then just go deep on it. And then the nice thing is, they say flow states become flow traits. So like as you do this, as you kind of prime your brain for it more, like you don't have to go through this much pomp and circumstance every time. It'll be easier and easier for you to just like lock in and get into flow. So there you go. Flow hacking
Wow.
101.
Wow. How long can you be in a flow state?
So you can definitely be in flow state for like hours on end. When I got really into it, when I first started experimenting and I'd set aside those like Wednesday nights, like I would lose like 3, 4 hours and I'd be like, what happened? Where did I go? And this was coming off of a season of me, like I got really into it because I felt like I could not concentrate. Like I couldn't get any work done. I would be early on into a project and my inner critic would basically be like telling me this is shit before it was like even partially baked. So I felt like I would get started, then I would just abandon stuff. And it was just like really forcing me. Like the only way I could get work done is I would basically have to wait until the deadline was looming. I would just procrastinate, and then I had no choice. And I was just like burning myself out on that cycle. So I was like, I got to figure this out. And that's when I got into it. But yeah, dude, you can go, you can be deep in a state of flow for several hours, but you have to be aware that like there has to be a sort of recovery cycle to where like you're
Right.
literally going to use up this neurochemistry, you're going to use up that focus, and then you have to allow that to reset. So, doing that like back to back to back to back, which I've definitely
Right.
had seasons where I've done, you end up in this sort of like post burnout cycle, and you're like, I'm worthless for a
Mm.
week.
Yeah. Plus, you need to hydrate. You need to
Yep.
drink. You need a bathroom
Yeah,
break. You
exactly.
need to you need to eat. Right. You need to talk to
You have to
somebody.
exist.
So and all of yeah, you have to exist. You have a life, right? But even the post flows thing, like all the important essential stuff of life, when you're doing it right, it'll just help you on the next round, right?
Yep.
Just improve and get in it. Really neat, man. Really neat. I should have applied that pre-flow prep before the spaces today. I probably
Next week.
would have had a different
Yeah.
story. Well, thanks for sharing that. If you guys want to see part 1, part 2 of flow states, this is part 3. We're going to share those bits in the near future. I have a quote,
Oh yeah.
and I am surprised. I am surprised how close this quote is to what we're living now,
Mm,
what we just
I like
experienced.
it.
I was like, and it wasn't intentional. Well, maybe it was a little bit intentional, but not really. Um, I open. I have the Creative Act by Rick Rubin, and I'm flipping through the pages looking for a quote. I'm like, oh, this one feels good, but I'm not like thinking about it, and I'm gonna read it to you. And we mentioned this. You mentioned this, Johnny. No matter what tools you use to create, the instrument is you.
Ooh, love that.
And through you, the universe that surrounds us all comes into focus. Be art,
There you go. Be art.
right? No matter what tools you use to create the instrument, the real instrument is
The
you.
instrument
You
is
are
you.
the art. Be art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, this reminds me, the presentation we went to last night is this amazing animator, illustrator, Nikita. I can't remember his last name. Crazy Russian name. Really cool guy. But he was talking about his process, and he was saying like I go really deep on storyboards and showing references to the client and everything else to cast the vision for the client. And somebody at the end, they were like, do you ever worry about that? That like the client's going to come back and say, like, oh no, this is too much like your reference. It's too much like this. And he basically responded with what I was thinking is like, no, because that inspiration passed through that unique algorithm is going to come out differently. Like that's
Yeah.
absolutely how it goes. Like when I develop a new illustration style, I always start like essentially I'm trying to copy somebody or something, a certain style, but
Hmm.
passing through the algorithm of Johnny, it turns into something else and morphs into something else. And like that's true with anything, right? So like perfect. I mean, Rick Rubin nails it. Like the instrument is you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to add to that and end with this. Like back there, right there, that's my son's art. He is a self portrait. He won an award from it. It was
It's
an art
awesome.
show, so I'm really proud of him for that. He did that when he was 7 years old, and he's never gonna be able to recreate that
Yep.
again. That was who he was at 6, and that's what makes it valuable for me, right? Maybe it's not valuable for you nor Johnny, but it is for me, because that's him. So very much what we were talking about in the beginning. And Johnny, this has been a great podcast. Um, Thank you for doing this, and love what we're doing with Supermodels. It's been a pleasure uh, partnering up with you and figuring this out together. And I know it's not easy, but we're in it
Here,
together.
here. Yeah,
Uh,
amen to that, man. Another exciting week and more exciting stuff to come. Uh, but loving every step of it.
So we're doing a podcast every week, dropping on Tuesdays on YouTube and X. I know we've been promising you guys that we're going to be on Patreon, and we are today. One of the reasons why I also like I was having this like technical difficulties because I wanted to surprise you all with a live stream. I wanted to live stream the show on top of me recording and hosting and everything. That never panned out. But I was like, should I live stream on
Yeah.
YouTube, TikTok, Instagram? Like, where do I have a fan base? And that never happened. But I am thinking about those things, like how can we live stream and keep that very lo-fi in the background. It's more like behind the scenes things. So maybe pay attention to it every now and then, see if there's any comments and stuff. But we have a media strategy, a media machine going on. We're gonna be all over the place, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. We're working on a new framework for our workshops. That's going to be fun, dedicated to like branding, for branding, designing, and it's also going to help a lot of people starting their companies. And every Friday we host a space. We hope to see you there Friday 11 a.m. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. It's been really awesome, really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks everybody for the support, for following along the journey and watching us continue to sort of build this thing and grow community.
Yeah, yeah. All right, everyone.
Cool.
Have a great one.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Peace.
Peace.